We recently got in the self-storage facility investing game, and to say it went smoothly would be a
lie.
It has not gone that smoothly. I did make a $100,000 mistake. Sorry, Lucas. So in this video, we're gonna talk about what went well, because a lot went well, what didn't go well, and how it kind of all rounded out, which honestly, we're actually pretty happy with, which doesn't probably make a whole lot of sense. We're gonna make it make sense in this video. Let's go. If you like learning from other people's big mistakes and not making them yourself, hit that like button, we'd appreciate it. Let's start from the very beginning, Lucas. Let's just go back from the very beginning. So let's walk them through kind of the initial purchase and initial plan.
Yeah, so we went to look at this in February 2020, and it was a self-storage facility, 66 units with a lot of upside. And we decided to make an offer on it. They didn't accept our offer. We offered $360,000, right? And they said, no, we want 500 grand. But then COVID hit and they're like, hey, we'll take your 360 now. So that's how we ended up purchasing it. And then we started planning the construction side of things.
Yeah, so we purchased it. And as you can see, there was a self-storage facility, as pictures are gonna be popping up as we're talking, but it was an existing facility that was just more of a mom and pop facility. Didn't have a website, had a few different numbers out front. It was in okay shape. It just wasn't really clean, and it didn't really look inviting. Right. So the goal was to rehab those, the existing units, and then there was some land next to it that came with that 360,000, so a couple acres next to it. So our plan was rehab the current units, and then build 2 more storage facilities next to it. We didn't know anything about building storage facilities, but we figured it wouldn't be that hard, and part of it was, part of it wasn't. We'll get into that in a minute, but it wasn't really too bad. So our plan was to put those 2 buildings up and then do some, outdoor boat and RV storage. And the goal, I think, was $500,000, right?
Correct.
So our goal was
for
to be
construction
for
cost
construction.
only. Yep.
Exactly. So our goal was 360 plus 500,000. So our goal was to be all in for 860. Maybe 900,000 was kind of the top line plan.
Right, and we were hoping it would be worth about $1.2 million when we're all said and done.
Exactly. So got not a ton of equity, but a decent amount of equity where we're not having a loan and having a mortgage out on too close to what the property's worth. So that was the original plan. All at 900,000, worth 1.2 million. Now let's talk about what kind of happened along the way. So what does a rehab look like on a metal building storage facility, Lucas?
Yeah, it's a little different than our single family rentals, right? There's
no kitchens.
No kitchens, no baths.
Sewer laterals.
No sewer laterals. But when we pull up to this place, we see opportunity. We see overgrown weeds. We see paint that's chipping off the buildings. We see a whole bunch of hodgepodge of different signs that don't have any type of branding, whatever. So when we talk about rehab, we're talking about improving it, cleaning up the grounds, no weeds, all nice new fresh rock, painting the buildings so they match our new buildings with a fresh coat of paint, no chip, and also get a nice signage presence. As you can see us pulling in from the road, you can see our sign and know exactly who to call or where to go on our website.
Yeah, and it didn't have a website before, so we created a website. So that went really well, as well as filling the vacant units went well. I think there was around 50% occupancy when we bought it, maybe closer to 60, but it was not very well occupied, meaning of the 66 units, there was maybe 30 to 40 that were actually occupied. So there was a ton of empty units. So we got those filled. We rehabbed it, did everything, and got those filled pretty quickly, up to 90-95% occupancy. And then we decided to build 2 small buildings next to it on that same property. So we threw those up, and honestly, overall, that went pretty well as well, right? They're just 1-story, simple buildings, adding about 50 more units.
Yeah, exactly. So as we were constructing the 2 new buildings, totaling about 50 more units, we were filling the old units that we've rehabbed, and we were filling them at better rental rates than we did before, just by a new coat of paint, some new signage, some new marketing, and we were able to get a much better rental rate than we were at the beginning when we bought it.
Which was awesome, because when we underwrote the deal, we didn't really expect too much of an increase, so we were already ahead of the game. The 2 buildings were going well. We didn't know how to do it, so we just got some builder's risk insurance on those 2 buildings and kind of hired some contractors, bought some metal, and threw them up, and it went super smooth. And the plan next, the final phase, was to, the couple acres next to it, was to rock that entire thing, put a fence around it, and do some boat and RV storage. But as we were looking at everything, we're like, these 2 buildings were easy. There's not much huge storage. I'm talking, 20 foot high where you can put in a boat or an RV. You can park it in there 50 feet long, and it was like 250 feet wide was the space we were looking at. We're like, let's enclose that. It's going to cost us, a couple $100,000 more, but we think with the rent we'll be able to get in those huge spaces pieces that there was a limited supply of, we would be able to make out much better. It's going to be worth more. It's going to be a little more work, but in the end, it's going to be worth more, and we'll have kind of a scarce product that people are looking for out there. So we decided to build that. Right? We were just saying, let's get some more metal and throw this huge freaking 20-foot high, 250-foot wide, long building up there, right?
And it went right up, and we filled it 100% occupancy, and we're cash flowing like crazy,
All
right?
right, show's over. That's not what happened. So I'll let Luke walk you through it a little bit, but we started to build it, and we had kind of the exterior frame up and the back wall up, and then what happened?
Yeah, we've had a windstorm. High winds in our area was around 50, 60 miles per hour, and it caught that back wall that Sam was talking about and blew the whole thing over.
250 feet is long. I mean, that's
and
like
about 20 foot high, like you said.
That's like almost a football field inland.
Right. Yep.
So blew it right over. So
almost onto a road and onto some cars.
So that wasn't good. We'll have some pictures popping up of that. So then we threw it back up, got it kind of braced differently, threw half it back up, and then
what happened this time? Another windstorm, and the whole back wall blew over again, and also kind of bent up some of the structural members.
Yeah, so we're not doing as well on this last one, and it's not looking good. People driving by seeing this mangled building.
The city's calling us, telling us to clean up.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. Yeah. So we, obviously there was a couple really strong windstorms, and wind came over the top of the other buildings and straight lined in those pipes. Yep, that's exactly what it did, and it straight lined in, because we had the side walls of each of the units down, so it just straight lined and knocked it over.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's do it right this third time. Let's get it up. So we kind of got everything a little bit more.
Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. We got a little more brace, and then
we had another windstorm. Was it even a windstorm the third time? Whatever. It blew over again.
It blew over again, and I was like, oh my gosh, we are going to be, we're like, we were talking about still pushing through. Let's get it up. Let's hire somebody new. We're going to do our other issues, but we're having issues with contractors. Let's do it one more time. And I was like, let's call our insurance company. That was an act of God. That gets covered under insurance. It was a storm. There was for sure, at least the first two times, was a storm with hail and wind. So, tornado warnings, all that stuff. So that'll be recorded on the, wherever the insurance companies go to get the weather data of where storms are.
Because there was a lot of extra costs that we're incurring. Cleanup, extra labor to build it back up just to get it to the point where it already was those 3 extra times. And if we were going to rebuild the whole building, we would have had to pretty much resupply the material for the entire building.
So it was going to be like another 100,000, another 100,000 to get it back to where we wanted, above whatever we already put in it. So I was like, let's just call our insurance. We have builder's risk for a reason. So I called the insurance agent, and he's like, oh yeah, that'll for sure be covered. Yep. And then I got a call the next day from him, and he's like,
Before that though, I got a call from him while he's on site.
Oh.
And he goes, I don't see the 250-foot building that you're talking about on your insurance policy.
Yeah. So again, didn't know what we were doing. I set up the insurance.
I go, we'll look again, still do your thing on site, and then we'll recircle up tomorrow. And I think that's when you got the call.
I got the call then, and I was like, oh, I didn't put that third building because that wasn't the original plan. I set up insurance, on the first 2, the builder's risk, and after those were up or almost up, we decided to do the third one. Didn't even think to add that new building to the builder's risk policy. So it was not covered. So what did we end up doing?
Yeah.
Kind of licked our wounds. What did we end up doing, Luke?
So I think you and I pride ourselves on this, making good decisions from now going forward. So we could sit and think about all this cost that we spent to build this building, and we call that the sunk cost fallacy, and you make a lot of bad decisions off that. So we're like, if we were to start fresh right now going forward, what would we do knowing what we know now? And that plan would be to go back to our original plan, just rock the whole entire lot with no building. And that's what we did. And we had a lot of cleanup, a lot of tear down, a lot of deconstructing to do on the building, but it saved us a lot of money in the long run. Those spots that we are going to have there are going to create a lot less income than the building would have, right? But we're going to have it operational much more sooner with a lot less headaches.
Yeah, and it's going to be operational. Who knows if we ever would have got it right?
Yeah.
Consider those, because they weren't like tornadoes; they were just pretty strong winds. So, kind of to recap our issues, and then let's get to the happy part. Movies and stories are supposed to end happy, so let's end this one happy. So, main issues was no insurance. My bad, $100,000. Sorry, bro. And then we had a wall constructed. Don't want to get into too much detail here because you're not
like
out
a retaining
there.
wall,
A
right?
retaining wall. The building or the lot was, you know, level, and then like maybe like a 5-6 foot drop, and then level again for the second part of it where we did the over the road boat and RV storage eventually. So we did a retaining wall, a really big retaining wall with like 2,000 pound blocks, right?
About 100 different 2,000 pound blocks.
And
so
we
do
built,
the math on that, how much weight that is.
and we built that entire wall about maybe 10 feet behind a building, but that 10 feet's not big enough for a car to drive and turn around, and there were storage facility
so we
doors
built
on
that in the
back.
wrong spot, is what
We
you're
built
saying?
that in the wrong spot. Last mistake kind of we made. So we tore that whole thing down and had to move it about 15, 20 feet out so cars had enough room to drive around and get access to the actual units that they would be renting and to unload and unload. So that wasn't probably a huge expense, but it was a decent expense that we incurred as we're learning you know, how to build storage facilities. And honestly, we take 100% responsibility for pretty much everything, obviously the insurance, but we didn't visit the site enough to you know, see that. Had we gone out there a couple times, maybe not the first time, but the third, fourth time we've been out there, we would have seen that before it was even done and moved it at that point.
Yep. So pretty much we're experts in the self-storage investing
So
world.
yeah, go do it just how we did it.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about where we are now, Lucas, with all the costs, the extra costs in construction, and you know, not doing as much and not finishing the building. How much are we going to be in this storage facility? The original goal is about $900,000.
Yeah, so it's actually about the same, but we just don't have that building that we plan to have. So we paid for this building, we paid for it to be constructed, and we pay for the materials, but we don't have it. So explaining that to the bank was a little tricky, I'm not gonna lie. But
have relationships with your small local banks.
But so yeah, we're into it about the same, almost that $900,000 mark. And in construction, like you said, is about 90% finished at this point. So the upper lot with the buildings, 100% done. The lower lot, we're just doing some final grading. It's gonna be all rock with over-the-road storage spaces for RVs, boats, campers, non-covered. And we got a fence going in a couple weeks and some new lighting and a gate. So we'll be 100% wrapped up within about 2.5 weeks.
And then we're expecting the next, you know, especially going into the next year, weather get nice, we're expecting, I would say, from 3 to 6 months from now, we will have it occupied enough to get a new value on the building. So at that point, we're going to get new value on the building and, you know, pull out some money if possible to get out of our private lender debt. So what do you think it's going to be worth now? Kind of high level, walk them through the happy ending.
Yeah, so after looking at the cash flow, you know, on the lower lot, we have less cash flow because we didn't do the building, right? But on the upper lot, all of our rents have shot through the roof. You know, with COVID and just the way the market is right now, our rents have shot through the roof, and also the demand for these type of assets has shot through the roof, which also helps out the value of the building with cap rates.
Higher demand means higher price.
Yes, for sure. So with all that being said, we reevaluated a couple months ago, and this property, when occupied here in the next 3 to 6 months, should be worth about $1.8 million.
On a conservative side, I think you ran at a pretty conservative cap rate, not getting into cap rates, but you ran it at a very conservative cap rate. So yay, happy ending. Kind of goes to show that we were agile, the market helped us out, and we ran our initial numbers pretty conservatively.
Right.
I think is a big part of it. We don't assume everything's going to go well. We don't assume that, you know, we're going to maximize everything. We try to be conservative in what things are going to be worth when we make that initial purchase.
I love that. And we do these, I would call this an extended BRRRR deal, right? And we do these with apartments as well. Our single family BRRRRs last about, what, 3 months, 3 to 6 months. But this one's going to take us about 2 years. But we're going to be able to pay off all the private lenders, like you said, and maybe even put some cash into our pocket with that $1.8 million valuation. I
think it'll be a little more than that. So I think we'll be able to pay everybody back. I think we'll pocket a couple $100,000, and I think we'll be all into it for 60 to 65% of what it's worth. So it's going to end up being a really awesome deal. So if you like to learn from other people's mistakes and you want to learn about single family houses, apartment complexes, storage facility, who knows what we're going to do in the future.
Short-term rentals
coming soon. So if you want to know about all types of real estate investing, doing it using other people's money or little to no money out of pocket, this is the channel to subscribe to if you have not already subscribed. So if you're watching it to this point, hopefully you've at least hit that like button, and if not, definitely make sure to do that and subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. We talk about our wins, but we also talk about our losses and lessons learned. So you can learn a lot from this channel. See you on the next one.